least restrictive environment, it's a good thing. But over the years, it's been harder to teach in that kind of environment because it's not necessarily there anymore. When I started teaching, we still had the true co-teach model. And I started with co-teach. I was the general ed teacher, and I had a special ed teacher that was in there with me. We were in there the entire day together. And when we flip-flopped that class, that teacher moved with the class to my math partner. We were able to work with students that were life skills students. I had quite a few autistic students. I had dyslexia students. I had OHI students. And at the end of the year, at the end of the day, everybody was successful. Then the money issues hit, and they started to have to cut back. They took out the co-teach model, and they started to fill those positions with paraprofessionals. But they also took away the amount of time that they were in there, to where the paraprofessionals, they can work from 8 to 4 what their hours were. So the extra planning that you had with the co-teach teacher that was special ed wasn't there anymore. And a lot more responsibility was put on the part of the teacher, such as data collection. In the old days, the general ed teacher didn't do the data collection, and now they were. So suddenly teachers started to find themselves with, 5, 6 students in their class that had IEPs and all different levels of disabilities, and they all have different IEPs, they have different objectives, they have different goal sheets, and you're trying to balance that with your regular monitoring, checkbook, notebooks, and everything else, and it's difficult. It's difficult. They do still have their caseworker, but a lot of times those caseworkers now have 40 students under them, and the personal attention isn't there. In the long run, I don't feel like the kids on either end of the spectrum are as successful, because you're pulled in so many directions, and there's so many hours in the day, here and outside of school, that you can get the work done. So in order for least restrictive environment to work as it should, I really think they need to bring back that co-teach model and find one way to fund that. The way it stands now, though, and it can work sometimes. Sometimes you just have 1 or 2 kids, and in that case, it's completely doable. But if you're in a situation where that student is disrupting the class and there's not another person in that classroom to work with that child, everybody has suddenly lost the lesson because they are being distracted. And oftentimes in a open concept situation like we have in Sci-Fair, the classroom next door and across the hall from you is also disrupted because they hear what's going on. So now the environment is restrictive to everybody. The child with the disability is not learning because something in that classroom set them off, and there isn't somebody in there to help put in the behavior modification plan. And the teacher is having to be torn: do I stop and help this student, or do my other 22 kids that are in the class? And the general ed students end up losing on it too, because either their lesson goes on pause for a minute, or the lesson continues, but there's something going on in the classroom that makes it hard for them to keep their attention where it needs to be. So that's kind of how I feel it is. I really think that if we have the budget and we have the funds and people work for it and we fight for it, we can bring back that co-teach model, and I know that it works. I've been there. But the way it is now, it's difficult. That's it.